Wow. I say this every Sunday when I come up here and after the music, I'm like, I'm complete. I'm complete. You guys just bring it. Y'all always bring it. Y'all always bring it. So I noticed when I said welcome, I didn't say who I am. So just so you know, I know. If anyone's here that doesn't know, I'm your minister, Reverend Sonja Perez. I didn't do that before. Thank you. Thank you. So I haven't told a joke in a year. I'm going to use Keith's joke. And Terry Olson loves my jokes, y'all. So she does. And y'all have heard it before, but there's a specific reason why I'm telling it. So think about it and then look at the title, and that might give you a key. A very proper lady began planning a week's camping vacation for her and her Baptist church group. She wrote to a campground for reservations. She wanted to make sure that the campground was fully equipped and modern, but couldn't bring herself to write the word toilet in her letter. So she decided on the old-fashioned term, bathroom commode. Once written down, she still was not comfortable. Finally, she decided on the abbreviation BC and wrote, "Does your campground have its own BC?" When the campground owner received the letter, he couldn't figure out what she meant by BC. He showed it to several of the campers, one of whom suggested the lady was obviously referring to a Baptist church, since there was a letterhead on the paper which referred to a Baptist church. So he sent his reply. "Dear Madam, the BC is located 9 miles from the campground in a beautiful grove of trees. I admit it is quite a distance if you are in the habit of going regularly." Right? "No doubt you will be pleased to know that it will seat 350 people at a time, and it is open on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday of each week. Some folks like to take their lunch and make a day of it. The acoustics are very good, so everyone can hear even the quietest passages. It may interest you to know that my daughter met her husband there. We are also having a fundraiser to purchase new seats, as the old ones have holes in them. Unfortunately, my wife is ill and has not been able to attend regularly. It has been a good 6 months since she went. It pains her very much not to be able to go more often. As we grow older, it seems to be more of an effort, especially in cold weather. Perhaps I could accompany you the very first time you go, sit with you, and introduce you to all the other folks who will be there. Sincerely yours, John Higginbottom." Isn't that awesome? Isn't that awesome? So I said, look at Hospitable, right? And so maybe their communication was amiss, right? They were completely talking about something different. But he was incredibly hospitable, right? Yeah. He's like, "Hey, I'm even going to go sit with you." So that's what I want to talk about this morning. Are you hospitable? And I want you to ask yourself that right now. Are you hospitable? Just, are you hospitable? And what I want to do this morning is to go even deeper into the idea of sacred hospitality. Sacred hospitality is what I'm chatting with. And it falls in with our theme of live in grace, walk in love. It completely falls. It's like a deeper way of practicing that. And a couple of weeks ago, I shared with you, or the question was, are you a restless wanderer? Do I remember that? Have you looked about, have you, because we're adding this on to that. Are you a restless wanderer? And for me, what that meant is, am I living from fear, anxiety? Is that what's driving my bus? And there are times when absolutely it does. Or is the judgmental criticism, blame driving my bus, which I talked about last week, right? When somebody parked right in front of me, I had all kinds of judgments going on. It gave me an opportunity to come back to the path. And that's what I love about this path, is it's practical. We can use it every day, all the time, in all of our little moments of what happens. And the path is simply knowing the truth. And y'all remember what that truth is, right? The truth of the one presence, the truth of that one presence being God, the truth of that presence being good. That's a foundational teaching, that it's good. And the other piece of that, our second principle, is that we are also that goodness. I am that goodness. You are that goodness, which then means everyone is included in that goodness. We all have sacred worth. And you noticed in my meditation, I talk about building those circles, those sacred circles, even wider and wider, knowing that all community, all people are good. And that's what this means of our second principle, I have sacred worth. That means everyone has it. Everyone has it. So, so what I want to talk about is sacred hospitality. And most of us, we think of hospitality, and it is, of welcoming people into your home, right? Having a meal. That's definitely what it is. That's definitely it. But it's also practicing it on this sacred level. And that's what I want to chat about. What does that mean about letting everyone into that? What is that? So first, I want to say, I want to give you the definition. Second, of sacred hospitality, I want to share it in the Hebrew scriptures, specifically Leviticus. And third, discuss ways that we can practice it. And we're already going to be doing that this morning, because keep in mind, it is New Member Sunday, which I'm so grateful for. Yes, exactly. Yay, yay. You guys, and it's a wonderful group, and I can't wait to introduce them to you guys. So here's one of the affirmations. Y'all know that every Sunday you have an affirmation, right? This one's kind of lengthy, but I still want to say it. But then I'll give you the short version. Okay, here's the long version. With everyone I encounter, I commit to living in grace and walking with a spacious and welcoming mind and heart of love. That's nice. It's long, but it's nice, right? So how about the short version? In community, I live in grace and walk in love. How does that feel? In community, I live in grace and walk in love. In community, I live in grace and walk in love. And take a moment, just take a moment to just settle in and think about, what does that mean for you to be in community, living with grace and walking with love? And even that may bring up, who is your community, right? Your family, your friends, your church. And can you accept that the entire world, with all of its peoples, that's your community? Can you accept that too? Can you welcome them in? Open arms. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so the definition, let's get to it. Sometimes I take too long with the intro, but I have to find myself, right? Okay, sacred hospitality, the practice of creating space for people to become more fully themselves, right? Just letting people be more fully themselves. So that reminds me, when somebody comes to me that's new, that I'm meeting, it's letting them tell their story as they know their story, their truth, right? Not trying to talk them out of it, not trying to be judgmental about them, and welcoming them into my life, and just letting myself get to know them. And here's the beautiful piece about sacred hospitality. When you live with that kind of openness, then both the host and the guest do some kind of growth, some kind of transformation, right? Because keep in mind, with sacred hospitality, you're allowing everyone in. Everyone. That means someone that doesn't look like me, think like me, have the same cultural background I do, the same faith tradition, any of it, all of it, right? And so hopefully in hearing their story, the idea is you're going to walk into something else, a new world of you. And here's the beautiful piece about sacred hospitality, which I'm sure you figured out by now, is it is a way that we honor and we love human diversity. You get that, right? That's really what sacred hospitality is. It's that everyone belongs exactly as they are, as perfect children of the one divine. That's sacred hospitality, right? If I belong and I have sacred worth, then you belong and you have sacred worth. It doesn't matter who you are. That's sacred hospitality. So here's what Henry Nouwen says about sacred hospitality. He says, hospitality is not to change people, but to offer them space where change can take place. The paradox of hospitality is that it wants to create an emptiness, not fearful emptiness, but a friendly emptiness, where strangers can enter and discover themselves as created free. Friendly emptiness. Isn't that a beautiful concept? Friendly emptiness. People are not, it's that we accept people without preconceived notions about anything, right? It's accepting them and loving them exactly as they are. So I said I wanted to share something from the Bible, and y'all remember when Jesus says, love thy neighbor, right? That's one of his biggest commands, love thy neighbor. Well, as you know, he was raised Jewish, and so he would have known the Torah, right? He would have known those teachings. Remember that those are the teachings that he came to teach, but he came to fulfill them in a spiritual way. He came to fulfill them as this is more than law, but this is also a practice. This is an embodiment. This is what we do. This is how we walk. This is how we live. And keep in mind that for Jesus, it was everyone. It was absolutely everyone. It didn't matter the tribe. It didn't matter any of it. It wasn't like, oh, well, you, maybe you can get my healing. Oh, you know. Maybe I'll love you. Oh, maybe you know. That was not how he did it. It was absolutely everyone, and that's what he taught. So Leviticus, if you don't know, is the third, right, y'all? The third book, thank you. The third book. And so last time, I think a couple of times ago, I talked about Cain and Abel. They're in Genesis. We're skipping ahead. We're skipping Exodus. And we're going to Leviticus, okay? Really quickly, just going to Leviticus. And the thing about Leviticus is it is a book about how to be. It's a book of laws. It's a book of how to act. It's a book of customs. And it's a book of when God is dwelling with the people. Now, keep in mind, it's the Hebrews' concept of the God dwelling with them. That's a really specific thing to know, right? It's not God writing the Bible. It's a people's consciousness of that God that dwelt with them. And so Leviticus is the statement. Here's what I want to read. 19:33-34. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. You get that, right? So you remember that they were slaves in Egypt. And so the concept is, you know what this was like. You know exactly what this is like. And you are not going to treat others the way you were treated. That's just a really important thing to practice right now, right? And that's what it means to live and walk this path. That's exactly what it is. So here's the thing about sacred hospitality. So just to put this into context, y'all probably know that there was not a Starbucks on every corner, right? People could not just go to a barista and get a drink, right? So sacred hospitality asked people, because there wasn't anything for people to go. So if you had travelers, because people would be traveling long land, they would have to go into houses that were not their own. They would have to be welcomed. That's what's so specific about this. That's what's so people could have been, because of, what had happened on the earth, natural disaster, war, they were looking for asylum. And they would find somebody's home, and they would be taken in, and they would be fed. Imagine. Because there weren't Airbnbs, there weren't hotels, there wasn't the Starbucks. They had to depend on one another. They had to be with one another. They had to welcome one another. That's how they were able to keep going, to keep living. Sacred hospitality is how we reflect not only the divine's love to one another, but also the sacred belief that we belong to the divine and to one another. It is a sacred practice of inclusion. Our co-founders taught us that we are all one in the divine mind. right? Unity, all of us. So do y'all want to practice this? Do you want to learn how to do the presence of sacred hospitality? Say that quickly. 1, be the soft space to land that you want in your life. Look at everyone you encounter with soft and kind eyes. Offer a smile. Know that the energy of that consciousness, that smile, changes you, changes everything, uplifts, right? And that is returned to you. Be a kind listener. When you listen, you are listening not to change or fix. Last week I talked about people aren't projects for us to fix, right? So you're listening not to fix somebody. You're listening to give spaciousness. You're listening to a person's story so they can find their way back home. That's really what it is. That's what it's about. Be compassionate and open-hearted. Begin with the awareness that we are each expressions of the divine. With our uniqueness comes our different cultural backgrounds, our histories, our family histories, right? Our sexuality, our gender expression, all of that. And when we live with big hearts of love and compassion, then we are choosing to see everyone with that. So now how about some practices? Here's a practice that I had to do when I was in school, because the idea is like, we're going to minister to different people, right? They're all not going to walk in and look just like me with my history. So what kind of people are your friends? So all of us in a class, we were asked to write on a piece of paper between 5 to 8 people in our lives that we absolutely trust. And then we had to put columns beside those people. And for each person, what was their educational background? What's their gender expression, their sexuality, anything, their faith, right? All of those things. And some people in the class were kind of shocked. They're like, oh, all my friends look like me. All my friends have the same educational background, the same cultural background, the same sexuality. So if you haven't done it, do it, right? It's a great exercise, because then you can see, how am I living my life? Am I living it from this openness, from widening the community and getting to know one another? So another practice I wanted to share is, as you know, this morning is New Member Sunday, right? So take an opportunity to go and meet new people. And if it feels comfortable, hey, do you want to have coffee? Do you want to have lunch, right? We are the one beloved community. And then get involved in serving. I know that that is how I have grown and transformed. And not only does this community need you, but the world needs us. So let us come together and decide what we want to do out in the world. There's so many wonderful things to do these practices. And I can't help lately, what's been on my mind is Bishop Desmond Tutu. I said in the last 2 Sundays, and I'm saying it again, and what he says is, I am human because you are human. My humanity is caught up in yours. I am human because